How do we create a future where we are able to prepare for the risk of weather-related disasters in time? Strengthening and sustaining climate data, as well as providing timely access to it, are critical, both in providing trusted and actionable weather and climate information and providing effective early warnings down to the very local level. Data is the invisible ingredient and at the root of every weather and climate forecast. We often take it for granted, but we have to remember data is not created equal. Yet we know that there are gaps in weather data, be it globally, locally, or temporarily. And in some cases, the data are ad hoc or unreliable. The impacts of this are not only local, but global. Climate and weather have no borders. For example, gaps in weather observations in Africa, in the Caribbean, and Pacific Islands mean that not only the quality of forecasts in those regions are more challenging, but also negatively impacts the quality of forecasts worldwide. For example, the gaps in the Caribbean or in the Pacific impacts the US forecast accuracy. Atmospheric, oceanic, climate and hydrological data have become an asset like any natural resource. We have a shared obligation to ensure that the next generation are prepared for a world where environmental and data influences everything. The exchange of data across public and private sectors is crucial to fill the gaps in the global coverage and delivering critical services to ensure societies are safe and proper response and resilience to weather and climate impacts. Science-based solutions and data are more important than ever to embed climate mitigation into key social sectors such as agriculture, water, energy, transport and construction, which are particularly sensitive and highly dependent on weather and climate data. In turn, actionable and timely weather and climate data are dependent on accurate and reliable observations, enabled by the most dependable measurement systems providing quality data. Climate and weather data are also important input to economic models transforming knowledge about climate hazards into potential impacts on economy. In the US, for example, it is estimated that 2/3 of the US GDP is intrinsically linked to weather impacts. It's also 20 times cheaper to mitigate climate change than to live with the consequences of it. Passive commitment is not enough. Let us all combine the expertise, data, and the passion we have for fighting climate change and jointly create observations and actions for the better world.
Welcome in 3 dimensions. It's wonderful to see you all. Yes, indeed. Absolutely. Thank you for attending the Presidential Forum. Before getting started, I want to thank our sponsor, Vaisala, who's sponsoring the Presidential Forum. And I also want to thank all the volunteers and the AMS staff whose tireless effort and dedication makes this possible. Whenever you happen to have the opportunity to become a counselor, or in my case, the 2022 president, you see a vantage point of the society that you've never been able to see before, and I can tell you that the individuals that run this show are fabulous. We have 1,200 volunteers in this society whose dedication is just astounding. The time that they give to this society is astounding. But I want to get into the Presidential Forum. But first, a little bit about the American Meteorological Society advances the atmospheric and related sciences, technologies, applications, and services for the benefit of society. Our annual meeting, the largest yearly gathering for the water, weather, and climate community, brings together atmospheric sciences, professionals, students, authors, educators, researchers, and weather enthusiasts from around the world to share their science and connect with one another. The 103rd annual meeting is centered around a central theme: data, driving science, informing decisions, enriching humanity. But it's also a wide range of topics, and it's one of the reasons why I so love this society, because we are broad in discipline, we're broad in sector, we're broad in skill sets and everything else. The Presidential Forum kicks off the annual meeting and is the only time our attendees meet in plenary and sets the tone for exciting, engaging, and an interesting week. The theme of the Presidential Forum, as opposed to the theme for this annual meeting, is data is power, and with power comes responsibility. Environmental Earth and space system data has one of the largest digital footprints and is a central component of scientific inquiry. But we have not yet collectively solved the problem of data access, discovery, and service. This Presidential Forum will be the catalyst for a week-long inclusive and collaborative discourse on the challenges posed by the data deluge, with a focus on how to stage environmental data and to make it efficiently useful and accessible for the plethora of applications important to driving science, informing decisions, and enriching humanity within our community and beyond. To explore this, we have an esteemed panel. We're going to begin with a keynote presentation by Dr. Lucas Joppa. And then we have panelists, Dr. Michael Morgan, Franco Amalfi, and Dr. Amy McGovern. I'm going to do an introduction, and then I'm going to turn it over to our moderator, Dr. Mona Bell. Lucas Joppa is a Senior Managing Director and Chief Sustainability Officer for Haveli Investments, a technology-focused private equity company, where he helps growing portfolio of companies achieve a net zero carbon operations, while also investing in companies building software solutions to sustainability challenges. Michael Morgan, most of you know Michael probably, is the Assistant Secretary of Commerce for Environmental Observation and Prediction, a fairly recent position. In this role, Dr. Morgan is responsible for providing agency-wide direction with regard to weather, water, climate, and ocean observations, including in situ instruments and satellites, and the process of converting observations to predictions for environmental threats. Dr. Morgan has served the American Meteorological Society community as a member of the board, on the board of Women and Minorities, AMS Scientific Technology Activities Commission for Atmosphere and Ocean Fluid Dynamics, and as AMS counselor. He was elected an AMS Fellow in 2018. Franco Amalfi is head of Sustainability Strategy, Global Public Sector for Google Cloud. Franco is responsible for the go-to market strategy for climate insights solutions globally. He is focused on advising governments to effectively use modern cloud-based solutions and emerging technologies to analyze Earth observation data at scale and inform climate adaptation strategies. Franco works with government organizations at all levels to leverage Google geospatial solutions to help accelerate science into operations. He will discuss how cloud-based geospatial platforms allow users to easily manage large volumes of environmental data, detect changes, map trends, and quantify differences on the Earth's surface. Amy McGovern is a Lloyd G. and Joyce Austin Presidential presidential professor jointly appointed in the School of Computer Science and the School of Meteorology at the University of Oklahoma. She is the director of the NSF AI Institute for Research on Trustworthy AI in Weather, Climate, and Coastal Oceanography, also known as AI2ES. Mona Bell is an associate director of the University of Georgia's Sea Grant College program, where she promotes the co-production and use of scientific knowledge for improved decision-making. And let me welcome Mona Bell, who's going to moderate this session. Thank you.
I'd like to begin by honoring and acknowledging the land on which we have gathered here for the AMS annual meeting. This is the traditional and ancestral homeland of Ute, Cheyenne, Lipan Apache, Arapaho peoples who have stewarded this land over many generations. May this acknowledgement demonstrate our commitment to working to dismantle ongoing legacies of oppression and inequities, and recognize the current and future contributions of Indigenous communities in Denver and beyond. I'd like to invite all of you to listen and ask questions, both online as well as those who are attending in person. So without further ado, I'd like to invite our first speaker and keynote, Dr. Lucas Chopra.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you for the introduction, for the invitation. Thank you, Mona, for the acknowledgments. Thank you all for being here. Thank you very much for being here in person. The last keynote I gave to a scientific society was to the Ecological Society of America, right in the middle of peak COVID. And it definitely wasn't what I had been expecting when I was a graduate student in ecology. I think my wife was at work, my kids were in school, and I was sitting alone in my home office talking by myself to a recorded camera. And it was kind of depressing. So anyway, thank you. So don't take offense, my friends in the ecology world, but I'm so happy to be here. And I'm really happy that the AMS decided to prioritize the topic of data for our annual meeting this week. And if we can start the timer, that would be great, so I don't keep you all trapped in here for an hour. Maybe you'll take me off the stage, but anyway. So I just want to say that the reason that we need to focus on data, we'll hear about it all week, about environmental data, planetary predictions, is because I believe that there's already a new digital revolution underway. A revolution that starts to move away from our current almost narcissistic obsession and focus of data on data about people, and move towards a broader, more powerful focus on planetary data. And I believe that ultimately this digital revolution will come to dwarf the social and economic implications or impacts of our past digital progress. And we'll look back at this time and this week of AMS as really kind of a turning point in when the world started to wake up to the technical, the financial, and the governance challenges that this new planetary data revolution presents. And so that's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about those challenges, and I want to talk about the promise that this revolution presents for both people and the planet. But before I do that, I just want to acknowledge a few things. First, I am many things, but one thing that I am most definitely not is what many of you are, a meteorologist. In fact, if you go and ask a lot of the people that go out on outside adventures with me, they will tell you that the best way to know what the weather won't do tomorrow is to ask me what I think it will do. So I should say, I think that's actually handed down genetically. I think I got it from my mom, who happens to be in the audience today. So thanks, Mom. And thanks not just for my weather prediction inability, but also for everything you've given me in life. So anyway, what I am instead is an environmental scientist, a technologist, a business manager, and an investor who from very early on was fascinated by the complexity of Earth's natural environments and really deeply aware of the dependency that our global economic systems have on these natural resources, and determined to deploy what I believe to be the most powerful inventions our species has come up with yet, our technologies and our financial systems, in pursuit of building a more economically and environmentally sustainable future for us all. And this theme of using finance and technology to procure more environmental data and enable better economic decision-making is one that's kind of threaded through my entire career. I studied environmental science at the University of Wisconsin-Madison and Duke University before I went to Microsoft Corporation, where I led research programs at the intersection of environmental and computer science. That position ultimately grew to where I oversaw sustainability for the entire company as their first chief environmental officer, before leaving recently to join a new private equity company, a technology-focused private equity company called Haveli Investments, where I get to double down on my deep desire to help not just operate, but also invest in technology companies that are building what I believe to be the solutions to today's environmental challenges. And I come with me into this talk with a particular worldview, a worldview that's really inspired by my reading. And my reading is really inspired by a series of mentors that I've had in my life. You'll notice probably that they must have been British, because the way that they taught me to do research prioritization was to think about it like this. You know a topic is scientifically important if it's covered in the journal Nature, and you know a topic is economically important if it's covered in The Economist. Now, I promise I read other things. I've published in some AMS journals myself, so I appreciate that there's a bigger world out there than that. But what I've learned in over 2 decades of reading these publications is that we're really alive and doing business at the intersection of 2 pretty unprecedented ages. The information age, that's kind of defined by this ubiquity of computing and devices that permeates our daily lives, and the Anthropocene, which is defined by this exceptional negative impacts of human activities on Earth's natural systems. And I've also come away from this reading with a deep belief that if we are ever going to solve some of our existential environmental challenges, it's going to be in large part by deploying the infrastructure of the information age to counter the Anthropocene. And particularly, what I'm talking about are the fundamental data, compute, algorithmic, and application programming interface inventions and technologies that we've come up with over the past 30 years that have really transformed our daily lives, to better monitor, model, and then ultimately manage Earth's lithosphere, hydrosphere, biosphere, and atmosphere. And the reason that we need to do that, and the reason that we need to do that now, is because since at least the Industrial Revolution, we've been building global economic systems based on a really simple debt structure. We've been borrowing from our environmental future to pay for our economic present. And we've been delivering continuous economic growth through the unmitigated emissions of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, the depletion of our biosphere, the pollution of our hydrosphere, and the structural, both physical and chemical, restructuring of our lithosphere. And that means that we, the people in this room, and everybody alive actually on the planet today, unfortunately, have to begin to repay those debts, because those debts are fundamentally coming due. A destabilization of our environmental systems is beginning to destabilize our global economic systems, which fundamentally are built on infrastructure and financial systems engineered for environments of the past. And we need to begin that repayment today, because default simply isn't an option. And the plan for that repayment at the end of the day is pretty simple. We need to balance our environmental books for the first time. All of the greenhouse gases that we put into our atmosphere, people have to take out. All of the resources we extract from our biosphere need to be replenished. Our hydrosphere needs to be restored, and the lithosphere needs to be restructured, if not physically, at least chemically. And doing all of that is going to require a fundamental change in the way that we think about the production and analysis of planetary data. Because to be able to ask and answer a lot of those basic environmental accounting questions like what is where, how much is there, how fast is it changing, who is responsible for what, and what actions are they taking? To be able to ask and answer that, we are going to have to considerably accelerate the data revolution that's already just slowly begun. And luckily, we have a little bit of a head start from a restructuring of the way that we think about technology and the way that we think about investing. Because for the past 200 years or so, sure, the most powerful technology and the most profitable investment strategy centered around the extraction and combustion of hydrocarbons in order to power the world's economy. But over the past 30 years or so, that stopped being true. Instead, the most powerful technology was the code and the computing that digitized our daily lives. And the most profitable investment asset was not in hydrocarbons, but what was in data about people and their activities. And very quickly, the software systems of record and the data centers that house those software systems of record became the newest additions to the critical infrastructure that the world's global economy rests upon. But I think that if we're actually going to ever deploy these digital resources in order to build a more environmentally and economically sustainable world, we're going to have to go much further, much faster. And my prediction is that over the next 100 years, the most powerful technology is not going to be technology that delivers data about people. It's going to be technology that delivers data about the planet. And the most profitable investment strategy is going to be investments that get behind the software and the hardware that monitor, model, and manage our natural systems and which serve as the world's sustainability systems of record. And so in 2100, I think if you look at the kind of the financial and the corporate landscape, in some ways, things are going to look very much the same. The top 10 companies, more or less, by market capitalization, are going to be software and data companies. But in other ways, I think things are going to be fundamentally different because those companies, the largest companies in the world, are not going to trade in data about people. They are going to be engaged in the trade of planetary data. And I believe that if the world is ever going to produce its first trillionaire, that person is going to be the one who manages to maximize the total amount of environmental assets under their technology's digital management. But in order for that all to happen, in order for those companies to exist, in order for that trillionaire to emerge, we're going to have to solve a few key challenges, particularly around technology, finance, and governance. All topics that I think are going to be covered in one way or another in AMS workshops this week. But just really quickly on technology, the key thing that I think that we're going to have to do over the next several years is really start to build out what I like to call the missing layer in today's digital technology stack. And this missing layer is really all about space and time, which happen to be the two dimensions which we as people experience life. They happen to be the two data types that will sit at the very core of our ability to ask and answer those simple accounting questions that we'll need to balance our environmental books. But they also happen to currently be treated as second-class data citizens by today's technology sector. And that means that today's technology sector hasn't even begun to really scratch the surface of what big data truly means. or the complexity of what it will take to write software and train algorithms at a truly planetary scale, much less think through the user interface and experience to enable people to make better environmentally conscious economic decisions. And finance is going to have to fundamentally rethink the methods and the value proposition. Both investors and entrepreneurs are going to have to rethink this, of data acquisition. Because the current model fundamentally expects consumers to pay the cost of collecting data about themselves, whether through hardware devices like smartphones, payment devices like credit cards, or software platforms like social media applications. And then furthermore, to take those data, freely provide them to companies for downstream monetization. But that model breaks down when the data that you need to collect are remote and disconnected from human activities. So I spent a long time at Microsoft, so I'll paraphrase an old Microsoft ambition or mission statement. You can't put an Earth observation satellite on every desk and in every home. You don't put a soil sensor in every pocket. But somehow, someone still has to pay the upfront capital expenditure costs of deploying these devices and collecting these data. And until at least a more mature ecosystem emerges in this space, oftentimes the organization fronting that upfront cost of data acquisition is going to be the software company itself, which hopes to monetize those data. And what that means from a software investing perspective and from a technology company management perspective is that investors are going to be forced to reclassify or redefine the way that they think about software companies as defined by balance sheet allocations. And managers and CEOs are going to have to employ and recruit much more technologically diverse teams. And I should say, one thing about giving talks in front of audiences instead of in front of your room by yourself is that you can't mess around with your slides until 10 minutes after the show starts. And I was messing around with my slides until about 5 seconds before the show starts, which is why this slide is just showing up now. So blame me. And my mom would say, you should have focused, son. I was focusing, just too late. And then the last thing that I would say, the challenge that needs to be overcome, is this kind of pesky issue around governance. Because this shift in data types, this change in our focus, this new planetary intelligence revolution is going to come with it all of our current problems and concerns around data sovereignty, privacy, security, equity, and justice. But it's also going to present a whole host of new problems of what type of access do we control and to whom? And does control and access even have any meaning when people and organizations and countries are capable of looking down from anywhere to anywhere and extracting information? How are we going to make sure that the systems that we engineer to build a more economically sustainable, environmentally sustainable future actually do that and don't make our current issues around justice and equity more acute and more severe? Those are questions that I don't have answers to. I don't believe anybody really does, but they are fundamental, and they're fundamental if we're ever going to actually achieve the promise that this revolution provides. And so there's just a few things I want to say as we get to the end of this talk. First and foremost, there is progress being made. There are platforms that are being developed. We'll probably hear about Google's Earth Engine, this incredible new cloud-scale computing platform for Earth observation, access to Earth observations and analytics. Microsoft is developing something called a planetary computer. Amazon is in this space, and so are countless others. These platforms are beginning, and companies are starting to take advantage. I know these companies are represented by many individuals in this room, companies like Tomorrow.io or Cloud to Street in the parametric flood insurance space. All of these cool companies that are starting to prove to the world and to investors that you can operate in this space successfully and profitably, and investors are starting to wake up. My move from Microsoft to Haveli is just one of a million data points out there that show that the direction that the money is moving is simply indicative of where this entire industry is going moving forward. And that's basically what I wanted to say, that there's a new data revolution. It's already begun, but 30, 50, and 100 years from now, we will look back at this time as just the barest beginning of what a true planetary intelligence economy actually looks like. The other thing I wanted to do is just offer 2 disclaimers. The first is, I'm pretty sure that everything I have to say comes with a heavy dose of observational bias. I've been in the environment meets economy space for a long time, the technology meets finance space. Now, I chose to structure my career off of first principles about kind of how the world works and what I thought was important, but there's definitely a chance that a few decades of staring too hard at some slides led me to be a bit myopic. And I'm sure we'll hear about that in the Q&A section. The second bit is just that I don't pretend to think that what I'm telling you isn't something that you already know. In fact, that's why I was so excited to come to AMS this year. I think that AMS is one of the societies that not just gets it, but is already starting to put in place the governance, the science, the engineering components of what might be required to ultimately build this planetary intelligence economy. And so I would just say that as this week continues, as this conversation continues, no matter where you come from, whether it's the science, we need you from the atmospheric to the social side, the business side, the entrepreneurship side, and the government leadership side. Because, as I said, this data revolution has already begun. It's going to accelerate. It's necessary if we want to solve our problems, but it requires the deep kind of uptake, insights, and intelligence that everybody in the AMS has to offer, and the decades of experience if we are going to make sure that it actually delivers on the promise of building a more sustainable future for us all. So thank you so much, and I'll turn it over.
Thank you, Lucas. I wanted to acknowledge the people who are, all attendees who are participating in person as well as virtually. Thank you so much for being here. Please continue to ask questions. We'll have the information up shortly. We'll now hear from each of our esteemed panelists, beginning with Dr. Michael Morgan, and then going all the way to Dr. Amy McGovern. So, Michael?
Good afternoon. I'm delighted to join this discussion on data, how it drives science, informs decisions, and enriches humanity. So we'll get these slides loaded up. Thank you. So from the depths of the ocean to the surface of the sun, NOAA is observing, measuring, collecting, and analyzing environmental data. NOAA translates these publicly available data into Earth system models and information, as well as tools, predictions, and projections for public use. NOAA's strategic plan identifies 3 goals: building a climate-ready nation, making equity central to NOAA's mission, accelerating growth in an information-based new blue economy. And I'll describe each of these briefly. But data, in the form of observations, analyses, forecasts, and projections, is foundational to all 3 of these goals. I just will note that tomorrow morning we have a Climate Ready Nation Town Hall, and I invite you to that. That's at 8 o'clock tomorrow. So for a climate-ready nation, what do we mean by that? A climate-ready nation is a thriving nation whose prosperity, health, security, and continued growth benefit from and depend upon a shared understanding of and collective action to reduce the impacts of climate change. NOAA helps the U.S. realize this vision of a climate-ready nation by being an authoritative source of climate information. NOAA's science mission of science, service, and stewardship can be viewed through the lens of how we work with data. With respect to science, as the previous talk mentioned, observations are foundational to the Earth system science research and modeling that NOAA conducts. With respect to stewardship and data stewardship, NOAA is transparent and makes all of its data and the interim steps and methods available online and in the literature. We validate our data sets and our methods, sometimes with double-blind analysis. We examine and update our methods repeatedly. With respect to data service, service is a central part of the NOAA mission. Service has been in our heritage to help our users with their needs, whether it be from the National Weather Service or the National Ocean Service. NOAA has the gold standard of climate information, and we are hearing from users of all types that they want and need this information to make decisions for their communities, businesses, and research. Furthermore, we recognize the incredible responsibility we have to ensure the equitable delivery and accessibility of our data. Service equity is central to our practice, and to facilitate the equity in the delivery of data and accessibility, notions like employing artificial intelligence and machine learning techniques, beginning to explore the uses of the cloud in ways that allow us to share our data in public-facing means are things that we're considering, and I think future talks are going to talk specifically about that. With respect to the new blue economy, this refers to the sustainable use of ocean resources for economic growth, improved livelihoods, and jobs. But how does data play a role? As our administrator, Dr. Richard Spinrad, has stated, the blue economy is a knowledge-based economy looking to the sea, not just for the extractions of material goods, but for data and information to address societal challenges and inspire their solutions. So, the greater value of data is realized when context and relevance can be attached to it. I'm reminded of a passage in a poem by Edna St. Vincent Millay that reads, "Wisdom enough to leach us of our ill is daily spun, but there exists no loom to weave it into fabric." Well, for climate services, NOAA has that loom. That's recognized in the process identified in the climate services value chain. Taking fundamental observations, processing them, quality controlling them, curating them, that leads to our direct users, whether it's through the use of creation of analyses, numerical weather forecast, the data being used for research and understanding, and finally to users that are further along the value chain of this, which are the end users that have interest that are in a number of sectors, whether they be in agriculture, fisheries, looking at extreme weather, looking at transportation. It's going to be important for us to take the data that we have and allow it to be understood and make the greatest use of it by these various sectors. But it's also important to recognize that this value chain is not unidirectional. Okay, the end user needs can and often do inform the observational requirements, the types of models that we run, and the post-processing of model output. We gather these user needs and requirements by conducting community roundtables, listening sessions, as well as tribal, local, state, and government, working with local, state, and federal governments, as well as the private sector. So the message that I have for you is that with respect to NOAA, we're open and ready to share our data. We're forming partnerships with the private sector, with local communities, with our other federal partners and state partners to ensure that the data that we have is translated and is connected to the communities that we're serving in an equitable fashion so that decision makers have the tools that they need in the form of data that we produce to make decisions that enhance livelihoods and economic growth. So thank you for your attention. I'm looking forward to the discussion that follows.
All right. So thank you. All right, can you put the slides? Okay, so thank you everybody for being here. My name is Frank. I'll really focus on how Google is approaching Earth observation and how we're looking at bringing capabilities to help governments. I'm focused on the public sector, but we have counterparts in the private sector. and really is how do we take all this data that is coming from all the work, the great work you're doing, from satellites, sensors, and so on, and organize it the same way we've organized data to make it accessible to all. And really what we want to do is accelerate climate insights so government can make decisions, so not only mitigation, but also adaptation, because we're now at a point we can no longer say that we have to adapt to climate change. There's 83 months, 21 days before the year 2030, and in order to meet our commitments, we need to accelerate the science into operations so we can better prepare for the future. How do we do this? Some of the biggest threats that we have from a climate change perspective, they are all weather related, drought, flooding, and so on and so forth. If you're looking at the Western United States, dealing with drought. If you're dealing at the East, is flooding, and so on and so forth. How do we actually better understand all this data so we can better predict and know what's going to happen in 7 days, what's going to happen in 30 days, versus projections that are going to happen in 2050 or 2100, which are great, but don't help us make those decisions. That's what we really focused on doing. If you're looking at one of the great opportunities we have is that Earth observation, there's thousands of satellites that are going into space. The small sats, the cost of sending satellites into space has gone down dramatically. So this is a great opportunity. We're collecting imagery across a number of domains, and we're collecting this at a higher rate than ever before. We also produce a lot of data, and we have 40-year plus of data. Landsat was launched in the 70s, so we have a significant amount of data that we can actually go back and understand the past so we can inform the future. In order for better using Earth observation data and better understanding climate risks, we got to link it to physical location, be it a building, forest, or whatever it is. We have to really tie spatial data with asset data that is very physical and it is very geolocated. Then we also need to link this to Earth's surface globally so we can better understand that. And so from there, we can aggregate and analyze this data and start making decisions on this data. That's where we come in with our tools to help. And the way we approach things at Google is very similar to what Lucas was talking about. First is the data. How do we bring all this data together? You are government and private sector and doing a significant amount of work collecting data. But data is in different formats. It's difficult to manage. It takes a lot of time to do data preparation. We're working with a client in Florida. They have 2 NASA scientists working there, spending almost the entirety of their time doing data preparation. These individuals should be focused on building algorithms so can better use that data for making decisions. That's where we want to help from a data preparation. And I'll talk in a minute about Google Earth Engine and how we've done a lot of work to start making this much easier for people to use. Also, smart analytics, using AI, using analytics tools to compute as well so you can actually start analyzing this data. And then an ecosystem of partners. We're working with a lot of climate tech organizations that are building very specialized capabilities on top of Earth Engine and Google technology and using all this Earth observation. Company like Climate Engine, company like Carter or Acclima or Tomorrow.io and many, many others. And also working with many GSIs, companies like Booz Allen, Capgemini, Deloitte, and others that are building entire practices so they can help accelerate this even further. We also have a number of technologies from a geospatial perspective. Everybody uses Google Maps, so we want to be able to use that as a visualization capability. BigQuery powers the Google search, the same capability, and put it in the hands of users for making decisions, and then Vertex AI for accelerating AI and adoption as well, and then so on and so forth. Specifically to Earth Engine, we have a very large data catalog. It's 75 petabytes today. It grows at about a petabyte a month. We actually have about 900 data sets. We have the major data sets from Landsat, from Sentinel, MODIS, and many, many others, NOAA, and so on and so forth. And we keep adding more and more of these data sets. We had about 100 a year new data sets. The other thing that is also really important is a computational platform. We have access to tens of thousands of CPUs, so that way we can actually process these petabytes and terabytes of data much, much more rapid than you could do on your own environments. And last but not least, there's an entire ecosystem. It's about 100,000 scientists that are using this on a regular basis and continuously contribute to the platform. platform and also use it for publishing. We have tens of thousands of articles that have been published and peer-reviewed on Google Scholar that are using Earth Engine. So there's a significant amount of work already being done. And the type of data we have, climate and weather, of course, is probably one of the most important things. Surface temperature, imagery, as well as geophysical data that we also bring into this. A perfect example on how this is being used, Dr. Hanson at the University of Maryland had a question. He wanted to know how many trees there was in the world. He used Earth Engine to get the answers, and the answer is 3 trillion trees. And his work was so powerful, it was published in Nature, and then the US Forest Service, the US Department of Interior, and then Unilever and many others are using his work to inform their decisions. It's like a perfect example. Unilever is so worried about palm oil, which is about 50% of all their products. They want to understand what is the threat to the palm oil. Indonesia stopped producing palm oil and shipping to the world. All of a sudden, this creates a significant impact on supply chain. Those are the kind of questions and kind of things we want to be able to enable with the technology. And with that, thank you, and pass it over to Amy.
I want to be like Lucas and wander. I don't want to stand at the podium. Can I have my slides, though? My counter is going down and there's no slides. Okay. I'm going to take a slightly different view. Our theme is on data and how powerful data is, and they've all been talking about data, and several of them have mentioned AI, but we haven't really jumped into it. So I'm going to be the one who's going to talk about AI, but I'm also going to talk about how powerful AI is and how we need to be developing it responsibly. And that didn't work. It did in the practice. There we go. So in particular, I want to talk about trustworthy AI. And so I thought this is a really broad audience. Even though the AI meeting, I don't know if everybody at AMS knows how big the AI meeting has grown. We're one of the largest sub-conferences that's happening at the AMS meeting. But I wanted to define AI just so that we were all on the same page. So AI encompasses a large number of methods that are basically automated methods that help us handle all this large data that we're talking about. We're getting in petabytes of data. Humans can't do that. And in particular, what we want to care about is trustworthy AI. We want that AI to be trusted by the end users. It's going to provide timely, reliable, and actionable information to the decision makers. And those decision makers range from people who are here, the forecasters, emergency managers, as well as the general public. They're all making decisions on a daily basis. How does the AI relate to the data? This may or may not be as familiar to the audience. I grabbed these from the internet, I admit. The graphic that is on the left for everybody, this is why I wanted to wander. So the graphic that's over there is a sort of hypothetical graphic talking about how AI methods work as a function of the amount of data that they have. And so the amount of data is on the x-axis, and it's growing larger as you go that way. The performance is hypothetical again. It's going up the y-axis. It gets better as you go up. The traditional machine learning methods, which are the ones that have been around and been used in the AI conference for a very long time. I don't know if you know, the AMS AI conference is in its 21st year. It's been around for about 25 years. Those traditional methods like regression, decision trees, random forest, they could do well with the small amounts of data. We are growing tremendous amounts of data. Franco just talked about that. But there's been a revolution in AI as well. Deep learning is coming on, and it's extremely data hungry. And it can work really, really well. But it needs all of that data we're talking about, although it needs it organized, just like Lucas talked about as well. I wanted to make a point that they hadn't made, and I didn't know this in advance, but I had that on the slide. One thing we have to talk about, especially if we're talking about the impact on climate, is that AI and data are not green necessarily. So this is another graphic I grabbed from the internet, but just showing the use of carbon for running these AI methods. We need to be doing that in a green way. If we're going to use it to be powerful, we need to also not be making the climate worse. This is just a quick graphic from a paper that we just had out last year, showing the popularity of how AI methods have changed over the last few years. So that's 1990 up to 2020, and it's in meteorology. So the query of what AI methods and what AI papers are showing up in meteorology, the blue line is the AI methods, and the last few years there's been a significant uptick, right? It's not going along the same, there's more papers, everybody's publishing more papers, there's more scientists. AI is going, whoop. So the theme of this is that data is power, AI is power. I don't know how much you know about AI making life-changing decisions for you on a daily basis all the time. AI runs your credit ratings. That runs everything else you do in life. AI is doing face recognition. It's in the news all the time for bad things that happen, right? AI is going to be making life-changing decisions for weather and climate. So I have an example up here of the Digital Twin Project, which is a project that's making a seamless ingesting all the observations and all the data that's available, as well as the NWP models, and it's going to enable people to make decisions on a daily basis. But these decisions are life-changing. The AI needs to be right. You need to do it well, because if you decide to issue a warning and you did it wrong, or you decided not to issue a warning, you killed people, what if you decide to relocate your family to climate change and the model was wrong? We want to do it well. AI is powerful. And this is why what we're doing, we need to be doing it in an ethical and responsible manner. So one thing that you might see in the news, sometimes what shows up in the news about AI tends to be ways in which it's gone wrong. And you don't think, oh, this doesn't apply to weather, because weather is objective. It's drawn from sensors. Sensors are objective. I see a few laughing and nodding heads. It's not always as objective as you think. So there's a lot of biases that can exist, and they can be totally unintentional. But the graphic that I have up there in the upper right is in no way saying that NOAA chose their radar locations to be intentionally biased. It happens to be where they could hit the most population, or where they could put the sites, and they're multi-million-dollar things. We had a paper we just had out last year that you can read more examples of just ways in which the weather data can have issues that happen that could make something go wrong. And so along those lines, just finishing, we, the AMS community, need to be the leaders in ensuring that the data that we're gathering, that we're collecting, and then the methods, all these algorithms, I like how you kept talking about algorithms, and I'm going AI, 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 that all of that is used in an ethical and responsible manner, and it's developed in an ethical and responsible manner. So I have a couple of quick guiding principles that are up there. And in nature of the fact that my time is up, I will stop there, but I will tell you that we have a talk on Wednesday where we're going to jump more into classification of bias in the AI systems, and so you can come to that talk and learn some more. Oh. I'm not live anymore. There we go. Rich wants me to point out we also have an AI presidential session on Thursday. Please do come to that. We're going to talk about decision-making with AI. Thank you.
All right, we'll get into the question and answer session. There should be two microphones. Yes. I think I'm going to stand up here. These lights are too dazzling. So I'm going to stand here and moderate the Q&A session. Thanks, Mayorka. All right. So to kick us off, do we have information for online participants to submit their questions? Okay, fantastic. All right, to kick us off, I'm going to ask one question to our panelists. How do you think convergence research frameworks serve to reduce the barriers to access and integration of data from multiple knowledge systems? And how do we ensure equity and inclusion in accessing this data and the value-added products derived from this data? Who wants to take it first?
Well, don't all look at me.
Well, as I mentioned with respect to NOAA at least, equity is central to the delivery of the data that we have. And I think if you're going to look at convergence research, just to explain that as I understand it, it's combining both physical sciences and social and behavioral economic sciences together to lead to some sort of research result. So it's I'm thinking about the term, it's greater than just a, oh gosh, I lost the term I was looking for. The idea is if you combine folks that have understanding of social and behavioral sciences with the physical sciences, you're going to make strides in terms of being able to protect lives and property. Understanding how the data that you're actually using informs how people use it to make decisions, I think is important. So it's this translational science that's important, and convergence research is going to certainly amplify our ability to do that. I think I got that a bit garbled, but that's where
I'll
I'm
take
gonna
a
go.
second stab if you want. I don't know how we just start talking and then our mic
And it
becomes live and
comes up.
special. I was going to answer the second half you asked, which was about the equity and making sure that we have equitable solutions, and I think that's something that maybe our private industry people need to talk about, but it's something that we need to really pay attention to because the data is getting online. We're making these servers, NOAA is making data available. It's freely available to everybody, but the cost of actually using that data and analyzing that data is not free, and it's not equitable across everything that we're doing, and we need to make sure that we have access. And it was one of my last slide points, making sure we're bringing the communities that are affected in at all times so that we're not just also coming in, sweeping in and saying, we're going to make algorithms and they're going to solve your problems. That's an XKCD cartoon if anybody's seen it. But it's not the right answer. right? We need to make sure that there's equitable access to the data and equitable access to the computing resources to handle it.
I would add also. One thing I would add is also, we actually spend a lot of focus on the work that we do. We're doing a project in the state of Hawaii right now where we actually do location intelligence, working with a partner called Cardo, where we actually try to tie climate risks to the equity, to understanding underprivileged communities, how those climate risks affect them more than others. Traditionally, that's what's happening. But at least visualize the data, bring it all together from census data combined with Earth observation data and location data, so that way you actually know where there are the risks. So that, like an example, we're working with a city where they're looking at building a new watershed. They were looking to understand what is the impact on those communities, which ones would be mostly impacted. The first thing is you have to understand what the impact is, and then making sure that as you're learning, using these funds from the IRA and so on, where 40% has to go to environmental justice, ensuring that as you're doing infrastructure projects, you actually are taking that into consideration as well.
Those are such important points. Thank you all so much. Lucas, you have anything to add?
Yeah, I would just add that I think this issue that Amy brought up is kind of the hot potato in the financing of environmental data. I mean, you know, we heard that Google's adding, you know, a petabyte a month or something like that. I know there's companies, small companies that are, you know, basically a 1,000,000x data to revenue out there right now. And this is kind of the point I was trying to get at about entrepreneurs and investors having to reassess data acquisition and financing models, because for people to come and want to do and be able to do interesting things on your software platform, they need to be able to access vast amounts of data, and oftentimes their queries are very sparse in a very dense global kind of raster matrix, and so it only kind of makes sense to have all of the data there all of the time for a sparse matrix of user queries. And who should front that? Should it be the government? Should it be the private sector cloud providers? Should it be the software service solution providers? And who should pay for the compute when all of this goes, you know, when an algorithm runs for 4 days and doesn't work? You know, those are all of the things that the world still has to figure out, because our ability to collect data and our ability to store data is rapidly outstripping our ability, or at least desire, to pay for it at the moment. And that is something that I just have not heard a lot of, this is kind of crude, like good ideas for how to solve. And I also don't hear a lot of people talking about it. I hear about public-private partnerships. I hear about all these things, but at some point, somebody has to pay the bill. And that is a conversation that, if we don't get right, has the potential to be extremely deleterious to our kind of equity and justice ambitions.
Good point.
Thank you all very much. I have another question related to equity and inclusion. And my question is, how do we ensure equity and inclusion of resources for also handling and processing the data? This includes AI, but also just data processing is expensive computationally. So what are your thoughts on that?
I'll take a quick stab at it. One of the things that we're doing with Earth Engine as an example, we're bringing in the entire Landsat catalog, and every single day, every time there is an update, we update the data. So if that's one thing that Google does that everybody does not need to do. Like, you can actually use the data from Google. You'll pay for whatever compute, whatever portion of the data you're going to use to actually analyze, and the results you're going to store. You're going to pay for the compute for that piece and the storage of the data. The fact that we're doing that work is reducing costs for everybody else, because otherwise you would have to download the images yourself. You have to run compute to compare the images and so on. So the cost would be much, much higher. So that's one way that we believe we're contributing back to reducing the cost of processing this data. And that's just one example. Landsat, the Sentinel, Modus, and many, many others as well.
Thank you, Franco. Anybody else?
I think there's some more kind of in research land ideas and opportunities around taking advantage of things that we've been doing for a long time, like value of information approaches for next best point sampling, so that we're not just willy-nilly grabbing as much data as we can and seeing what an algorithm can do with it, but we're actually going out and proactively deciding what data sets that we want to bring in. I think that there's interesting ideas around cloud compute, almost insurance models, where you can run some type of AI, get back an early result, and basically say, next step, if you label these next 100 points, next step, we will guarantee you accuracy within X or Y, because we know how to do a lot of these things statistically. So that can help bring people more, kind of empower people in that computational loop to know that where they're going is where they want to get to from a cost and an accuracy perspective. But
Amy?
I'll give an answer that they haven't touched on, but I think you mean it. You just haven't said it, which is also the open nature of everything. We're doing the open science, the open source, open as we're developing new methods, if we're making them available, if we're making Jupyter notebooks available or whatever we're doing, then more people can use them, more people can learn about the methods, and then we can have more equitable access to it, because it isn't just the one person who thought up this thing, wrote up a paper, but just, didn't feel like telling all the details in that paper, and now nobody else can do it. It's available. Yeah. So the more open source and open code that we do, that's going to help with the equity as well. Yeah.
Right, and so one of the things with respect to code that NOAA is doing is we're trying to develop a community of practice around AI. And so in doing that, we're trying to develop these learning journeys, which are basically Jupyter notebooks that have embedded them code as well as access tools to access the data that for NOAA's vast reservoirs of data. And so we're going to be making these publicly available, and that's something that I certainly encourage the community to think about and engage with, because I think as we develop this community of practice around AI, that will at least get to some of the open data and the open science aspect of things that we're doing. But with respect to getting the data freely available to the public, we are making partnerships with a number of cloud service providers they're hosting our data and allowing some of the minimal egress charges. But if you want to do deep computation on that data, that's still going to be a cost. And so we are thinking about this at NOAA. It's not like we're just totally silent on it, but we don't have an answer yet.
Thank you so much. We have a question here. Please introduce yourself and ask your question.
Is this live?
Yes.
Hi, my name's Ray Schmidt. I'm an oceanographer from the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution. And a few years ago, I served on a National Academy panel looking at the need for more funding for ocean observations. The ocean's got 1,000 times the heat capacity of the atmosphere and 100,000 times as much water. There's a lot of seasonal predictability that comes right out of the ocean. But as oceanographers, we're really struggling to maintain things like the Argo Float program. And I wanted to ask Michael, put him on the spot, what are the prospects for increased funding for ocean obs out of NOAA? Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, the prospects of increased funding for OBS, it won't be directly from NOAA, but from the allocations, authorizations, appropriations from the federal government. We understand that the ocean, as scientists, we understand that the ocean is going to be key to understanding how the climate system is going to evolve over time. We're doing our best to understand the observational requirements to develop this notion of a climate-ready nation. Right? We need to know what our climate future is going to be, have accurate climate projections, that the underpinning of all of this comes from data, whether it's with surface observations, ocean observations, atmospheric observations. I can't promise you that I can tell you what the dollar value that we're going to have, but we're going to continue to invest in ocean observations, looking at new ways to get those observations as effectively and as efficiently and as cost effectively as possible, like using uncrewed systems to get some of those observations that may lower the cost and our access to data. So that's what we're trying to do.
Thank you so much. I'm going to take one question online. Isn't there such a thing as too much data? Even with all the information, people and companies do not make climate rational decisions. Any comments on that?
I will take a step. Yes, we actually have too much data. We have to reduce the noise. That's why we need to process all these massive amounts of data so we can actually get to the insights. So, because at the end of the day, unless it's physical risk, understanding how it's affecting an asset, that data is yes, it's great to have, but it's not going to give us the tools to make decisions. That's why we're really focused on building these insights. We think this is one of the biggest big data problems we need to solve from a planetary, as Lucas was saying. This is the future. Like in the next 10 years, this is one of the biggest areas we need to focus on. And I think we are producing a lot of data. We just have to get to the insights, to those signals that give us the information.
That's where the AI comes in too.
Yes.
There is too much data. There's data overload. Nobody can make sense of it. We have to be able to do those actionable insights.
I think it's super interesting. Like, what's that show, like Hoarders or something? You know, people love to watch these like TLC shows about people's houses just crammed, and they watch and they, you know, apologies if one of you is a hoarder, but you know, people watch and they're like, oh, that poor person, like someone needs to help them. Every single person watching that show is a hoarder. Every single person in this room hasn't done anywhere near the job that your mother's told you to do and your kids and go and clean out your room. None of you go and delete all of the data, the dark data that's collected once and never seen again. We're all culpable in this incredible weight and burden that we're putting on our digital infrastructure. In fact, our AI, you know, experts are just struggling to come up with machine learning algorithms powerful enough to plow through what turns out to be 98% useless data. Nothing against your family photos, but you know, so yeah, there's way too much data, and as I said before, we have well-polished statistical routines, things like value of information techniques that can tell us what data is which data are more important than others, and we should start using those instead of just taking brute force, you know, machine learning approaches.
Right. I'm going to take a slightly different tack at that. I think, just like the earlier question about ocean data, right? We don't have enough of that in certain locations, right? So it's where that data is located may be one issue, but also the value of data. The more data you have, you actually do reduce uncertainties and analyses that you're creating, right? Through data assimilation, you can throw lots of data at it, but each additional observation, if you know its error characteristics, you can actually use that to reduce the uncertainty or analysis, which then gives you a greater precision in the forecast that you're producing and a greater understanding what those uncertainties are. So I'd say, in a practical sense, maybe we're being deluged, we're drowning in data, but I think we have to, at NOAA certainly, and I think at other global weather centers, have to look at how do we effectively use the data to get the most information out of the investments that we're making in it.
All right, we have time for one more question, and I'm going to go there.
Hi, I'm Ed Strobach. I work at NOAA. I have one question here. I wrote it down. I don't doubt that we will move to a world where planetary data will become more important at the decision-making level, but how do you factor in the different world governments that don't really see eye to eye and have fundamentally different cultures with worldviews that go back thousands of years? And we also still see that a lot of these governments compete for global dominance and not cooperation. Additionally, it appears that the global instabilities that we're starting to see could go either way, bringing people together or tearing people apart. And given the global response to COVID, it seems like tearing people apart is more likely. I try to be optimistic, but I have a pessimist view a little bit.
Well, I think with respect to global observations for weather, water, and climate, we're in a pretty, I'm optimistic about that to the extent that we have agreements, global agreements, international agreements to share the data that we have, much of the data that we have, and that allows us to participate in this whole enterprise of Earth system prediction today. And so there are conflicts, there are different cultural norms and things of that sort that we have to deal with, but at least at the level of sharing some of the fundamental data that's necessary for environmental prediction, I think I'm really happy that we have the agreements that are in place that allow us to share it, we rely on other countries, even ones that we may not agree with in terms of some political things, we actually share that data. And so I think that's a positive thing.
I'm going to give an answer of a book I like to read. I read a lot. And it is, I have no financial interest in this book. I just happen to think it was really good. Have you read Kim Stanley Robinson's Ministry of the Future? Some people have. Okay, so it is somewhat depressing in the beginning, and it's sort of near-term science fiction. It's set about 5 years from now. It starts with a heat wave in India killing several hundreds of thousands of people. It's very horribly depressing. The world starts to fall apart in a hell in a handbasket, and then it comes together. And what I found so interesting and fascinating out of it is that he really has insights into the human behavior, and since I've read it, I just keep seeing all the things he's talking about happening. I don't want to ruin the ending, but it's not pessimistic. How's that? I'm going to leave it as it doesn't all go to hell in a handbasket. So there's some really interesting ideas in there, and I recommend it.
The other thing, one thing I would just add also, of course, there's going to be divergence here and there, but if you just look at the amount of funding that governments have put behind climate, in the US, in Canada, in Europe, in the last few years, the amounts are incredibly high. Like in Canada alone, it's like multiple billions just for climate adaptation. In Europe, it's hundreds of billions of euros for climate adaptation. Same thing in the US with the Biden administration. If we look at it from that perspective, the way governments are responding, I'm thinking that, of course, not everything's going to be rosy, but at least government is trying to make efforts to help with this effort.
All right,
Well, I
regretfully,
feel a little
we're,
better, so thank you.
Thank you. I'm hoping with
regrettably, we're out of time for more questions. I'll encourage you all to stick around. Our panelists are going to be here, so please stick around and ask your questions then. I'm going to ask each of you to make some closing remarks and leave us with an actionable item, please.
Well, let's go that way. Oh.
You can go first.
All
if you
right,
want.
sure.
It's fine.
Well, I feel like I said a lot of what I wanted to say. You're all hoarders, and we need to do a better job. No, look, I think the last questioner probably really represented my headspace as well, like a deep ambition to be an optimist, but kind of constantly slapped in the face by the pessimistic reality of the world that we live in. And I think it's up to us to continue to counter that, to have an objective function of taking what each of us individually is skilled and passionate about and deploying that in the pursuit of building a better world. And for me, building a better world is one where more people can have a better experience, a better life experience, and that's fundamentally not going to happen until we find a way to build a different, more sustainable relationship between our economy and our environment. I don't think that we're going to do that without bringing planetary data to the core of our global economy and the core of basically every conversation. And so I guess that's all I would ask, is that you leave. I know what it's like. I'll leave and I'll go email about year Q1 financials or whatever and whatever. Like, keep in your head, while you get into those details, keep in your head the big picture of what you're trying to do, the big picture of what we all have to do. And just make sure that when you start your day and you end your day, you remind yourself of that big picture. That's what I do, and it's the way that I can kind of keep coming back to why I do what I do. And I just think that it's a great antidote to some of the pessimism that can seep in on a daily basis.
Thank you, Lucas. Amy, do you want to go next?
I'll take it. I agree that we shouldn't be pessimistic about that. There are opportunities, I would say, from a NOAA perspective, for engagement with this community and the community that's online, in weather, water, climate. NOAA does a lot of things great and well. We develop great models, and we also we do share our tools in an effective manner. And so what my call is a call for engagement in terms of helping us develop our models and improve the delivery of our models. We have an initiative called the Earth Prediction Innovation Center, EPIC, and that's something where communities can get engaged in that. That's going to help improve our predictive capability, and that's going to allow these, the notions of what's the future climate going to look like. We're going to be able to reveal that. Also, with respect to AI, we're developing this community of practice. You go to noaa.gov/AI and look at community of practice. You can sign up, get on a mailing list. It's not going to be spam you're going to be getting. You're going to actually be signing up to be part of a growing community of folks that have an interest in AI methods, sharing the methods and learning from those methods. And I think that's going to help inform how we get the access to data. One of the aspects of getting access to data in an equitable way is through some of these AI tools, and so we can investigate that.
Thank you. I would actually end with this. Like, if you look at climate change, there's 5 stages of grief. You start with the first stage is like the world is ending, like, oh my God, what are we gonna do? And you move to optimism. I wanna be more on the optimism side. We have huge opportunities with all these satellites that are going into space, collecting all this imagery. We have more processing power, and we have the capabilities from a technology perspective to harness this data. There's incredible work happening from a science community. If we put all this together and we each do our part, I think we can actually take action, and we can actually really reverse some of the things that have been happening. Let's focus on that. Let's not focus on the fact, is climate change real or not, or should we not do this? I think we have to do it. It's for all of us, and it's for our future. I think it's so important that's why I'm no longer doing something in healthcare. I'm focused on climate change. I think it's much more important, personally.
Okay, and I'm going to end with tying on to both your points, but with the AI part. I think AI is going to be a key to helping to make some of these changes, to understanding the data, to being able to be transformative. We have to do it right. That's what I was talking about. We actually have a whole bunch of that community of practice as well. So since he's pushing a website, ai2es.org, you should go there because we have a lot of educational resources, and you should go there because what I want to say is that you shouldn't feel like, oh my gosh, AI has been happening and I'm just being passed by, because we want you to be able to learn about it. We have a brand new tutorial paper out and a second one under review. We want you to be able to be comfortable with the methods and be able to understand it so that you too can become one of the people who's changing the world. Yep. I want to say one last thing. Another book, Catherine Hayhoe's book, talks about how we sometimes get overwhelmed by the loud voices, and that we think that those loud voices and those haters and those climate deniers are so many people. And last questioner was asking about that. They really are a very small percentage of the population. And we have to not let ourselves get overwhelmed by those loud voices. We can be the change. We really can, and it starts with us. And we talk to our friends, we talk to our neighbors, we talk to each other. We become that change, and you can do it.
Fabulous. Thanks to all of you for your participation. Sorry that we couldn't get to all the questions. I'm going to turn it back to Rich.
Thank you so much for the panelists, and thank you, Mona, for moderating the session. That was really informative. We're going to transition now to our annual review and the formal AMS business meeting and the awards ceremony. There'll be some removal of these chairs in a little bit. While that's happening, and I don't know how that happens, but I'm sure Jen Ives knows how that happens. But I want to at least say that we can confirm that we have a quorum of, we need to, according to our Constitution, we need more than 50 voting members, and we have more than 50 voting members here. And while we're removing the chairs so that they don't interfere with the photos of the award recipients later, I want to talk a little bit about that logo. I don't remember any of the other presidents ever speaking to the logo, and there was a lot of thought that went into the logo, and you can imagine what the hexagon stands for, right? Especially if you're in cloud physics. It's the ice crystal. But you know what? We have some hardworking commissioners out there, and a hexagon has 6 points to it, right? 6 sides. And it represents the 6 commissions that the AMS has. Also, you'll notice that there's these little data points there, these little droplets, and of course those represent data points. They also represent precipitation, hydrometeors. And then we have the bar graph in the background, which you could say looks a lot like the mountains of Colorado, but it's also a histogram representing how one summarizes data. So there was a lot of thought that went into that. We had a lot of fun with it and put some colors together for diversity and all of those kinds of things. And so I want to remind everyone that the theme for this annual meeting, the 103rd annual meeting, is Data, Driving Science, Informing Decisions, Enriching Humanity. We have set record attendance. For those of you who are on virtually, online, thank you for being with us. We have over 6,700 registrants. Indeed. About 1,000 of those are online. So even the in-person attendance is a record attendance. It represents 57 countries. This week we will feature nearly 2,600 oral presentations, 1,100 posters, 75 exhibitors, 48 sponsors, and over 800 students. You should have seen the student conference yesterday if you were there. 750 students in person, about close to 100 students online. It was really quite remarkable, really, really quite remarkable. Yeah, indeed. Indeed. So again, I want to thank everyone who contributed to making this meeting possible. A special thanks goes to all those, especially in light of the challenges that we have faced. You know, it's been a tough 3 years. Y'all feel that. I feel bad for Mary Glacken and Mike Farrow, who had to put up with the online meetings, fully online meetings the last couple of years. But we did have a chance prior to the presidential forum to celebrate in person the awardees of 2021, fellows and awardees of 2021 and 2022. And again, I want to congratulate all of you for that. Yes, yeah, absolutely. I do want to take a moment to congratulate and thank some specific groups. First of all, our sponsors. I mean, you know, we have, like I said, 48 sponsors, and as well as our corporate patron, who's Lockheed Martin. I want to thank, I've said this so many times today, I'm going to keep on coming back because it's a recurring theme with me. All those who work so diligently to plan the outstanding annual meeting that I'm hoping that we have. By the way, there's 9 presidential sessions during this. One was mentioned as AI, but there's others. I'll let you look at those later yourself. But I want to again thank the AMS staff. The AMS staff is just wonderful. They're on 150% all the time. I've never met any group of people who can respond so quickly to questions, and I just can't say enough. It's just wonderful. The director of meetings, Jen Ives, and her team are just fantastic. Fantastic. I want to point out, I didn't see any, other than Scott and Melissa, I didn't see anyone from the overall planning committee come in, but I want to acknowledge my co-chairs, Melissa Burt, Scott McCarrow from the overall planning committee for 2023, and there's Yari. Yeah, stand up if you're from the overall planning committee, please, take a bow, yeah. Yes, good to see you. Great, and you guys took your bow, right? I didn't see it. Melissa and Scott have been fantastic in helping put this all together. We have a local planning committee as well, led by Claudia Gorski, and I'm going to, give a special shout out to Liz Cohen and Kelly Sabuco, who have planned individual activities. And we have a really, really strong local outreach program. A book drive. Thank you for whoever contributed to that book drive. We exceeded our wildest expectations, and then in addition to exceeding what we collected for the book drive, we found out that the NASA Globe program had some extra books, like 900 of them, that we were able to put into schools. So it's like a wonderful activity. We have a local organized meeting with the Denver Museum of Nature and History, Nature and Science, later on this week, and just a number of other activities involving air quality, some of which Scott McCarrow is involved in through Vysela. I want to thank the conference symposia program chairs and their program committees, how much work you do, the meetings that you have every month, and the serious, 61 people taking their time, being on participants on Zoom calls, and Jen Ives running right through it. Just boom, boom, boom. I never thought anybody could lay out the details like she can. And the students who provided support for this annual meeting. We have, I don't know, I didn't get a last count of how many students are working as student assistants this program, but there must be 100 or so, working so. Also want to get to the results of the election. You probably already know this, but if you don't, we have a president-elect, Anjali Bomsai. Anjali, are you here? You can, yeah. President-elect Anjali Bomsai. Anjali comes from the government sector at NSF specifically. I also want to announce the counselors, Danae Carlos, Becky Tapadwin, Rong Fu, Michelle Manelli, and Aaron Coughlin de Perez. Those 5 counselors were elected, and they'll join council. They were there today at our council meeting. And 2 new commissioners. Liz Cohen is taking over EEC, the Education and Engagement Commission, and Christy Franz is taking over the STAC Commission. And, yes, thank you. So we look forward to those, the president-elect and the counselors and commissioners to bring what they will to the society governance. I would also like to acknowledge the following individuals who are completing terms and thank them for their dedicated service. You know these individuals. Mary Glacken is a past president. The president, whenever you're a president, you go through president-elect, president, and then past president. Or some say first past president, second past president, whatever. But anyway, Mary has served this society extremely well. Mary, are you here? There's Mary. Yeah, absolutely. Talk about sage wisdom. Boy, there's a load of it right there in her head, that's for sure. Also the counselors who are rotating or completing their terms. Deke Arndt, thanks Deke, if you're in the audience, thank you. Effie Fufula Giorgio, I know she's not here because she was online earlier this week. Their classes started already. Ruby Lung, Ruby, if you're here, thank you so much. Vernon Morris, I know Vernon isn't here. I think he's in Rwanda, maybe, last I heard. And Julie Pullen. Thank you, Julie, for your support. And yes, thank you. Commissioners, Ankur Desai, who is the past commissioner of STAC, and Kevin Gobert, who was past commissioner of education and engagement. Thank you for your time and dedication. No one works harder than the commissioners. No one works harder than the commissioners. Also want to thank incoming president, Brad Coleman, past presidents, Mike Farr and Mary Glacken, for your leadership and your friendship during the year and through our presidential transitions. It really takes a village, it does, and it's so important to be able to rely on their expertise, their experience, and what they bring to, I had lots of questions, I still do, and I probably will by the time I leave this position, as Mary is doing now. But, and by the way, Mary's not going away. She's just, we already have her involved in several other things, so. Anyway, if you'll bear with me a little bit, I want to talk a little bit about some reflections and give a little bit of a status of the society report. So I'm just going to read some things because I can't memorize it, and I'll just go through them. So one of the highlights of the year has been working with our new executive director, Dr. Stella Kafka. And I'd like to ask Stella to come up and give her welcome. If you haven't met Stella, this is the time to do it. And Stella joins the AMS from actually the astrophysics community. She was former director of the American Association for Variable Star Observers. So she comes at the society with a different perspective, and it's been a real joy working with her over this past year. So Stella, have a few words.
Hello?
There you go. I think you got it now.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the 103rd AMS meeting. I have been in the role that I am right now a year, but this is going to be my first meeting, so I'm really looking forward to getting to know you all. And one of the things that I got to really appreciate, value, and respect in this society is the effort that everyone, all the volunteers, all the individuals who are in leadership positions, but all all the individuals who are working behind the scenes, as members of committees, as members of boards, and as members of our commissions, are putting all the energy, all the love, all the passion to make this amazing society the society that serves you and your needs. So another round of applause for all our volunteers, please. 1,200 individuals, 10% of our society members are serving the society in a volunteer capacity. So can I please get another round of applause now? Since this is going to be my very first meeting, I am really looking forward to get to know you. I will be wearing my mask diligently. Please come and say hi. And I'm very interested in hearing what your vision of this society is, what your needs, and how we can actually move forward in order to advance your career, make sure that we build an equitable and strong community, how we are going to move forward with the needs of that community, both scientific and social, and how we're going to actually make the AMS even better. The AMS is you. You are the AMS. We are serving you. So thank you so much for coming here. Really looking forward to talking to you more. Thanks, Rich.
Thanks, Stella. Thank you. Okay, so we have a new executive director. We also have a new chief financial officer, Andrea Mansolini. Andrea, I don't know if you're here to recognize, but under the leadership of, and by the way, I'm not taking these in any particular order of significance, just going through some of these things as I put them together. Under the leadership of past President Mary Glacken, an ad hoc group on council organization and function reviewed the AMS Council's approaches and practices for discharging its duties and recommending changes that will enhance the effectiveness of council. We have already begun to do this, and there's already been remarkable change, I just want you to know. A lot of this is lost in the weeds. You probably wouldn't be interested in it unless you were on council, but I do want to point out a couple things. The council has been working to be more effective. We are striving to do that. We have adopted new principles. If you're interested, you can look at documents online on community, on the AMS community. We've begun to, one of the things that came out of this recommendation was this: we should be identifying strategic priorities and that cross administration. I'm calling it administration, a term of a president. And so we should be identifying strategic priorities that cross over one administration to another and sometimes move on for several, okay, that are at the highest level, the 30,000-foot types of things. There's lots of things going on inside, okay? There's lots of internal strategic issues, tactical decisions, and all of those things to make the society better. But what are those issues that really require all of us to come together and braid in a way that we seek solutions? And so for the first time, and I'm not going to steal your thunder because Brad's going to talk about this, but we got together in September and we had a workshop on how to develop a plan to advance climate science and services across the entire society. I'll let Brad talk a little bit more about that later, but that's one of the things that we're doing. And what I've really appreciated is the seamlessness with which Brad and I have been able to work on these things. You know, it's been really a pleasure working with Brad as he's coming in as president and being able to sort of move this initiative forward. So more on this later. We've been working on DEI issues. You talk about a strategic priority. DEI threads itself through everything that we do. You know that we've hired a director of DEI, Katie Putsavich, and we're getting ready to we're going to launch an equity assessment. There's a presidential session on Tuesday on the equity assessment, and so there's a lot of emphasis there. And we look to all of you to help achieve these goals. This isn't going on in the council with the councilors and the commissioners, and we're just going to dictate what happens. It can't work that way. It has to be all 12,000 members, and as Stella mentioned, the 1,200 volunteers that are so marvelous in bringing this change about, bringing these initiatives about. And there's some important stuff that we have to be thinking about. All right, we're a society that is multidisciplinary. We think sea to space. We think operations. We think education. We're into research. We're academic. We're private. We're NGO. We're government. We're international. I mean, what other scientific society could say such a thing? We're wonderful. I think I missed one here. We also have another ad hoc group that's just firing up, and we're excited about this. Co-chairs Kim Klockow and Aaron Pena will be doing a deep dive into the Constitution and bylaws. How deep they dive isn't determined yet, with the aim of bringing together greater clarity, conciseness, and alignment. Already a committee that has been formed, developing a strategic plan. Oh, I said that about climate science and services. We have now a board of student affairs. It's called SAB, so Student Activities Board or Student Affairs Board. And 2 students will be invited to council as non-voting guests. Okay, and we're really excited about this. This came out of Mike Farrer's presidency. He had a real initiative going on there, brought on this Student Activities Board, and it's been voted on by council, and we're moving forward on it. So, for you students out there, we're really interested in having you part of this society. You're the future of this society, and it sounds like lip service, but it's not. It's real, and the society can't, exist without you. And there's so many ways for you to be involved. So many ways for you to be involved. So, the council adopted and readopted 4 statements in 2022. One was best practices for severe weather safety for pre-K through grade 12 children at school. The other one was a Supreme Court decision in West Virginia versus EPA, a setback at a time of tremendous opportunity. Freedom of scientific expression was readopted. I mean, who would argue that, right? And it was really interesting, I found, that we went from a statement on geoengineering, which was the old statement, to and we revised it fairly significantly, and it became a statement on climate intervention. So I encourage you to read those statements if you haven't. So I want to take a moment now to talk about the state of our society. 2022 was a year of significant financial recovery from the COVID impacts of 2020 and 2021. Overall operational performance appears to have been better than budgeted for the year. Always nice to say that. While improvement was significant across the organization, some impacts of COVID increased competition. Shifting open access mandates posed continuous challenges for 2022 and moving forward. You all know about the open access is coming along, open science, open access. As a matter of fact, we think that this is so important that we allowed the NASA TOPS program, many of you are familiar with that, to have the first position as the first presidential session tomorrow morning. They're going to be doing, and they are offering workshops and certification workshops all week. So there's so much activity that takes place at the AMS every year. I want to point out a few other things. Okay, a lot of work went into expanding our career services, and I'm excited to announce a new career advising portal that was launched last week. 2022 represented a year transitioning back to in-person meetings, and a successful hybrid meeting model was developed, which promises more inclusive experience and allows us to reach a wider audience. And again, I come back to Jen Ives and her team and the tireless effort that they put into these hybrid meetings are complicated, and you're trying to minimize the cost of doing both hybrid and in-person. But you know, the fact that we have 1,000 people out there online participating in this meeting in a manner that they may have not been able to at all if the hybrid option wasn't available to them is pretty remarkable. 2022 was a strong year for membership, with overall membership numbers the highest since 2018. That's pretty exciting, huh? And as AMS expands its reach, we're expanding membership options. We're, you know, Weather Band is an example of how we're reaching out to try to train new members. Public outreach efforts through Weather Band. And if you're not a member of Weather Band, you should be. There's good discussion on there. Everybody likes Ted Best. A framework was developed to conduct an equity assessment. I mentioned that before. There's a presidential session on equity assessment. The policy program has had a remarkably successful and transformative year with a return to an in-person summer policy colloquium. Many of you are alumni of the policy colloquium, summer policy colloquium. They published many studies and focused on equity, inclusion, and justice throughout the enterprise. Publications, some saw some continued impacts from COVID and other factors, including increased competition and shifting publishing mandates. I've already mentioned some of those. AMS is working to evolve its publishing business model to stay ahead of the rapidly changing publishing landscape. And just to let you know, as members, you should know that your council, that this is one of the most serious issues that council faces. We have really in-depth discussions. Tony Broccoli is the publications commissioner, and he gave a fantastic assessment of the entire issue of open access and how that's going to change business models. And anyway, he did that at the council meeting today. Thank you, Tony. Really appreciate that. Let's see. Increased grant funding provided continued support for AMS's long-running successful AMS education programs. They just received a grant, I think, within the last couple of weeks. We also got some grants to support the equity assessment from AIP, the American Institute of Physics. And overall contributions were very strong for 2022 and reached the highest levels since the Centennial campaign. So we are all sort of coming back, but we'll still take your money. Now, I want to, you know, all of you know Keith Sider. Keith Sider was executive director for, I think, 16 or maybe 17 years. I don't know for sure exactly that number. But for decades, Keith has been working with leaders from our community towards new approaches to supporting science and its applications. It is, thus, so fitting that we wish to recognize Keith, his 31-year tenure at AMS. And he created this entity called the Dr. Keith Sider Roundtable on Innovation, which will afford a yearly opportunity to think big, to imagine all of what we are doing from a new perspective. We will be establishing a fund to support the yearly roundtable and thank everyone that is able to support this initiative and donation. And I would like to call Keith up to the stage if I could. Oh, there you go. Thank you. Nice shiny bowl. I don't know if we're going to get a photo. Yeah, there's a standing ovation here. There you are. I don't know if they're trying to get a photo or not, but let's stand. You're wonderful. Everyone loves you, and you know, what you do for this society is amazing. So thank you, and I really personally appreciate everything you've done for me. Thanks. Yeah. Do you want to say anything? Okay. I didn't think. Okay. Thank you, Keith. Keith's still around. His wisdom. Now, I'd like to move on and ask the commissioners to come up and just give a brief report. This is going to be a fairly quick overview, but I think, you know, we always try to save time here a little bit because it's a business meeting and it can be a little bit tedious, I know. But nobody works harder than the commissioners. And I would like to offer them the opportunity to come up to stage. And we'll just go in that order. I don't have to introduce you or anything. Your names are there and the names are on the screen. So if you maybe follow that order and just give a little bit of a review. And thank you so much all for your service.
Thanks, Rich. Still early enough in the meeting, I actually do remember my own name, but don't need the prompt there. But I am Mike Augustinek. I'm the Commissioner on Professional Affairs. CPROF, as we call it, supports AMS members throughout their career, including and especially in continuing education, professional networking and mentoring, and professional certifications. And this past year, we awarded 22 new certified broadcast meteorologist designations, 15 new certified consulting meteorologist designations, and 20 new certified AMS teacher certifications. If you're curious as to what goes into those, if you would like to receive one of them, all of the information is on the website, and that's at am@soc.org, of course. During the past year, we also were able to introduce a new Spanish language version of the CBM written test, marking the first time that the certification process for the certified broadcast meteorologists can be completed entirely in Spanish, from the written test to the tape review. I was proud to have a big part in that, but I did just a fraction of the work that the AMS staff, being led by Kelly Savoy, did. So big thanks to them. We also have 2 new proposals for 2 new certifications that have come in from you, from AMS members. One of those is close to being approved, and the other is still early in the process. I think I can let the cat out of the bag on the certified digital meteorologist proposal, which is pretty close to the finish line and will sort of help fill in the gap where the broadcast meteorologist designation wouldn't apply. Reminder that this is a process proposing new certifications that comes from you, and that anyone can start that process by going to the AMS website, clicking on the Education and Career section, and going to the Professional Development page. And just lastly, Rich mentioned briefly the AMS Board on Student Affairs. That's a cross-commission effort under both Commission on Professional Affairs and EEC, the Education and Engagement Commission. That now is the home of the Student Conference Planning Committee, which plans the annual student conference, which just wrapped up today. 3 new committees include the Specialty Meetings and Events Committee to work with organizers of the AMS specialty conferences that take place throughout the year, the Student Professional Development Committee to organize and host webinars throughout the year, and work with AMS to improve opportunities for mentoring, job board postings, and other events, and the Student Outreach and Engagement Committee to handle social media for all of those other committees. We still need volunteers. Even if you're set to graduate this May, you can still serve on the Student Affairs Board past your graduation date. You can find me on the AMS website and send me a message if you're interested in learning more, or if you know Margaret Orr or Holly Mallinson, get in touch with them as well. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about AMS publications. You've already heard some things from Rich. The status of our journals for this past year, preliminary data indicate that we got about 3,000 submissions in 2022. This is down about 20% from the peak in 2020. There are many potential reasons for this decline, and the Publications Commission is closely monitoring these trends to try to understand what may be happening there. However, there's also growth in the AMS family of journals, because we are now home to a new journal that debuted in 2022, Artificial Intelligence for the Earth Systems. We have more than 80 submissions to that journal so far, And you've already heard from Amy McGovern, who is providing tremendous leadership as chief editor of that journal. Now, to turn the page and look in the other direction, we also have an old journal. Monthly Weather Review celebrated its 150th anniversary this past year. And if you're a regular reader of Monthly Weather Review, you've probably seen some of the special articles and editorials, including a very impressive historical review by Chief Editor Dave Schultz and Sean Porter, which I certainly advise you to read if you haven't already. Speaking of Dave Schultz, Dave is one of 4 chief editors who will be retiring or who have retired as the end of 2022, and we'd like to give them our great thanks. Dave at Monthly Weather Review, another Dave Kristovich at the Journal of Applied Meteorology and Climatology, Luca Baldini, the Journal of Atmospheric and Oceanic Technology, and Gary Lackman at Weather and Forecasting, although Gary isn't quite retired just yet because he's providing some overlap with his successor. Speaking of his successors, we were fortunate to be able to recruit some great people to follow in their shoes. Ron McTaggart-Cowan of Environment and Climate Change Canada, Steve Hu of the University of Nebraska, Steve Nesbitt at the University of Illinois, and Matt Bunkers from the National Weather Service. Finally, I'd like to echo some of the things that Rich has already said and thank all of the dedicated people who are involved in AMS publications. This includes the professional staff at AMS, but also many, many volunteers, volunteer reviewers, volunteer editors, volunteer chief editors, and at-large Publications Commission members. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Encore, and I'll be brief. Thanks. No. But to be frank, I don't think I need to necessarily tell you all about what STAC, the Scientific Technological Activities Commission, is, because you are all part of STAC in one way or another just by the presence of being at this meeting. STAC has 408 members. That's roughly almost 3% of the entire membership. And together, collectively, through their 36 boards and committees, work on organizing the conferences that make up most of the meetings that happen here at the annual meeting, as well as a number of specialty meetings that occur through the year, including the very well-attended Collective Madison meeting that occurred in my neighborhood in July, as well as a variety of meetings occurring. We've weathered through a whole variety of changes and challenges with the future of meetings, but we are actually experimenting right now in the present of meetings in this commission. Beyond meetings, our commission is involved heavily in a variety of contributions to everything from webinars to short courses to statements to editing and working with the reviewing the glossary of meteorology to awards, including our own STAC Commission Awards, of which 11 will be presented either this week or later in the year, as well as outreach and work with volunteers throughout the community. And I want to remark also that I will be stepping into the past commissioner role next week, and Christy Franz will be coming in, and then the new incoming commissioner will be Clark Evans from the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. And I promise to be brief, and so I'll leave it at that.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Kevin Gobert from Valparaiso University, current Commissioner for Education and Engagement. Our commission is constituted of boards and committees that focus on 3 elements: education, member support, and service to the community. There are too many highlights. We'd be here till midnight if I went through all of them, so we'll keep it to a brief 5. Along with the Professional Affairs Commission, there is another cross-commission effort called ECLA, the Early Career Leadership Academy, which graduated its 4th cohort in June of 2022. Planning is well underway for the 5th cohort for this upcoming June, and the application will be open soon. So for any early career professionals that are looking to develop their leadership capabilities, both for within the society and within all the places that they serve, look out for that application. More information can be found on the AMS website. Our Board on Representation, Accessibility, Inclusion, and Diversity continues its excellent work to create a more welcoming and inclusive society for all of us, offering a plethora of webinars and also many events at this meeting. Check out those events this week and find your place within our diverse society. The Board on Higher Education is working on updates to the AMS Bachelor Statement, always an exciting conversation. There are many and multiple opportunities this week to offer insight and hear about that planning process. Please avail yourself of that opportunity so we can set a really good standard for the next 5 years. There are growing opportunities to serve within the Global Partners Program organized by our Board on Community Service. Search AMS volunteer opportunities to find out more to serve our greater, broader society out there in the world. And if you want to volunteer for anything within our commission, please don't hesitate to reach out to me as the current and almost past commissioner, our incoming commissioner, Liz Cohen, and the future incoming commissioner, Kevin Claesel. Thank you very much.
Hello, I'm Sue Hopp, representing the Commission on the Weather, Water, Climate Enterprise. Our mission is to foster communication between the private, public, and academic sectors. We're composed of 23 boards and committees and hundreds of volunteers. We host various meetings and conferences, including several at this particular meeting. Look for energy, weather, water, climate, energy, and also I'll come up with that in a minute. In addition, we have specialty meetings such as the AMS Washington Forum to discuss policy issues, summer community meeting this year discussed numerical weather prediction and how to advance it into the last mile, Mind the Gap workshop talking about education that will include private sector jobs in the future. The other meeting here was Symposium on Environmental Security. We also have lots of specialty sessions in collaboration with others. Like STAC, we hold lots of webinars, work on statements, advocate for things like sharing the spectrum so that we don't impact our weather forecasting. We expand collaboration across AMS, across other societies, across international organizations. And in summary, we'd like to advance actionable science topics that require collaboration across the entire enterprise. So thank you for all our volunteers.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Susan Jasko, and I am the Planning Commissioner. Now, the other commissions all have titles that make it a little bit more self-evident about what they are focused on than a title like Planning Commission. I'm from an academic background, so those of you who may also share that background may recognize the term Committee of Committees. I know everybody laughs, everybody thinks this is silly, but it's not silly. It's actually, as it turns out, exhilarating. And I say that because I have the great fortune of serving this year and next year as the commissioner with all of the other commissioners as members of the Planning Commission, some additional representation from the membership, all of the flavors of presidents, you know, the elected ones, the current one, the past, and that double past category. Obviously, we don't like to let them go, right? As well as, of course, wonderful members of the staff and, of course, the executive director, Stella. And so we have the wonderful opportunity of really getting to know and understand what's happening within each of those commissions and drawing, if you will, horizontal connections among these things, identifying gaps, identifying challenges, identifying opportunities. And so we have been doing that this year, and the themes that have arisen, you've already heard about a lot of these kinds of things. For example, the task force on the future of meetings. There are multiple opportunities here for you all to contribute your thoughts about how meetings should continue in the future for AMS. This is such a dynamic, productive, and very large organization. that your contributions make such a difference in the Planning Committee's efforts to take a look at ideas like transparency and how we can improve that, diversity, equity, inclusion, and make sure that that is diffused throughout all of the organization from this moment forward. And so we are working currently on looking at strategic planning at various levels of the organization and making sure that those will be developed in a way that cohere, that is consistent with the values and the mission of AMS. And I have to say that I think we may have the most fun meetings. So if you're looking for a commission sometime to join, I hope you will consider us. Thank you.
Just a warm applause to the commissioners again, if you would. The Secretary Treasurer's report, I just want to note that the business covered in this section will be reflected in the Secretary Treasurer's report that will be available on the AMS website very soon. Now, I'd like to take a moment for the deceased members who are shown on your screen. Take a moment of silence to reflect on those members who passed away in 2022. Let's honor them, and with this moment of silence, if you would. Thank you. Now, moving on to maybe the most important part of this meeting is the awards ceremony. And it's my pleasure to introduce Danielle Breezy, who, by the way, is the recipient of the 2022 June Bacon-Bercy Award for Broadcast Meteorology. And she's going to MC the awards ceremony for us. So, Danielle. Let me get my junk out of here.
Thank you very much, and it's so good to be with you all tonight. And just to let you guys know how this is going to work as we read your names, if you don't mind coming to that side of the stage, the camera's going to be right over there. Come on up. He'll greet you. We'll take a group photo. You can take your mask off if you feel comfortable with that as you come up and receive your award. So congratulations. There's a lot of award winners to get to tonight, so let's get started. We begin today's award ceremony with the new fellows for 2023. The AMS Constitution states that those eligible for election to fellow shall have made outstanding contributions to the atmospheric or related oceanic or hydrologic sciences, or their applications during a substantial period of years. This year's class of fellows embodies a sense of contribution to the community. So as I read your name, please come to the stage and we'll get a group photo at the very end. The 2023 new fellows are Brian T. Busby, Wen Ju Chai, Gregory R. Carmichael, getting everyone up? Okay. David Shagnon, Megan F. Cronin, Paula D. Dorico, Art DiGaetano, my former professor at Cornell, by the way, so I had to give a shout out there. Mark D. Maria, Julie L. DeMuth, Z. Wen Fan. You can cheer for your people, by the way. I like this. Yu Gu, Wei Cheng Han, Young Yu Hu, Anthony Andy Johnson, Jack Kane, Sonia Lasher Trapp, Jennifer Mahoney, Eric D. Maloney, Shaima Nasseri, Ali H. Omar, got a lot of you, Perry Sampson, Vijay Talapragada, John Noel Thipo, and finally, Susan E. Wafels. So congratulations to our newest fellows, by the way. And the camera's going to be over there, just so you guys know. All right. Or if you guys want to exit that way, that's totally fine. There's a lot of you. Congratulations. Oh, thank you, thank you. All right, and as they mosey off the stage, we've got a lot to get to, so we're going to turn, to our lectureships. Now, unfortunately, there's only one awardee here, and she's here with us on stage. We're going to keep her, right? Where are you? Stay here. Yes, please. This is the Walter Orr Roberts Lecture Award to Julie L. DeMuth. So congratulations again to Julie. Yep. And then the photo's right there, just so you know. Yep. And then look over there, yep. And congratulations, Julie. And although they cannot be with us here today, the Robert E. Horton Lecturer in Hydrology is Hamid Morakadni. And then also the Bernhard Harwitz Memorial Lecturer is Paul O. Gorman. So if you can give them a congratulations. They're probably watching via Zoom somewhere. And now to the rest of our 2023 awardees. I can't believe it's already 2023. It's crazy how fast these years fly. Tuesday morning, the 2 local chapters will be presented at the local chapter breakfast. The local chapter of the year is going to North Florida chapter of the AMS. And then we also have the local chapter or student chapter of the year, is going to Northern Vermont University Linden student chapter of the AMS. So congratulations to both of these groups. And if you're in this area, please stand to be recognized. There's some of you, yes. Congratulations, guys. Okay, so we now come to 2 awards given to those involved in operational forecasting. We asked both these recipients again to come on stage for recognition, of course, a photo. The award for an exceptional specific prediction is presented to Andrew W. Orison and the Weather Prediction Center team. And then we have the Charles L. Mitchell Award, which is presented to Thomas T. Lindley. And if you guys want to get together for a picture in the center here. Oh yeah, open those bad boys up. There we go. All right, thank you guys. Congratulations. All right, so we got another big group of awards here. The AMS Editors Awards are presented to individuals who have performed exemplary reviews of manuscripts submitted to AMS journals. So it's a wonderful opportunity to recognize some of these best reviewers that their work is done typically anonymously, but is critical to the quality and success of AMS peer-reviewed publications. So we've got a number of you, so please come up to the stage. We're gonna get a big line and a big group photo as we announce your name. The first one is the Bulletin of the American Meteorological Society, Yi Lin. We also have Bulletin of the American Meteorological Society, Karen Marsben. Then we have the Journal of Applied Meteorology and Climatology, Craig Ramsire. The Journal of Atmospheric and Oceanic Technology, Falk Hutman. The Journal of Climate, Chaim Garfinkel. We've also got the Journal of Climate, Haiyan Tang. And one more for the Journal of Climate, Sang-Wook Ye. And you guys can come up as we go. Yeah, come on up. Don't wait, come back up. Come up on stage because we're reading you, come on up. Oh, we're going through them all? Okay. All right, here we go. Got the next one. Journal of Hydrometeorology, Sal Young. The Journal of Physical Oceanography, Beatriz Peña Molina. Journal of Physical Oceanography, Jim Thompson. The Journal of Atmospheric Sciences, Allison A. Wing. Monthly Weather Review, Rebecca Adams Seelan. And then we've got another monthly weather review, Justin G. McLay. Weather and Forecasting, Alexandra Anderson Frey. Weather, Climate, and Society, Adrian M. Wooten. And then we have Weather and Forecasting, should I say, Journal of Applied Meteorology and Climatology, Maria J. Molina. And finally, we've got the Cross Journal, Ryan Sobash, and Glossary of Meteorology, Jennifer Tate. Congratulations to all of you. This should be the group, yep. And so if you guys all want to look at the camera right there, yep. Congratulations, guys. Oh, yeah, you're welcome. Congratulations. So now the Society is presenting awards that are aimed at outstanding early career professionals. Please proceed to the stage again as your name is called, and we'll take a group shot at the end. The award for early career professional achievement goes to Violetta Yas. The Clarence Leroy My Singer Award is presented to Angeline G. Pendergrass. And though she is not here with us today, the Henry G. Houghton Award is presented to Jing Lee. Congratulations. And also not here with us today is the recipient of the Nicholas P. Pfuffernuff Award, which is presented to Li Jing Chang. So please give it up for all of our award winners. Congratulations, guys. A wonderful aspect of science is that it connects with the general public every day throughout the media. We have 2 broadcast awardees to recognize today. The Award for Excellence in Science Reporting by a broadcast meteorologist is presented to Angie Lastman. And then my favorite award, the June Baker Bursey Award for Broadcast Meteorology, is presented to Bernard J. Reno, as I like to call him, Bernie. Yeah, Bernie. Yes, I know, hi. I know, yeah. All right, congrats, guys. Congrats. Yes. All right, so in addition to broadcast meteorologists, the public also learns about science and its impacts through journalists and authors of books aimed at both adults and also children. So we have 3 awards in this category, and so we're gonna ask all of you again to come on stage for a group photo. The first award is the Award for Distinguished Science Journalism in the Atmospheric and Related Sciences, and it's awarded to Kay Nolan. Uh-oh. Don't drop the stuff. Okay, the Louis J. Batten Authors Award for a book aimed at an adult audience is awarded to Ramalingam Saravanan. Hopefully I said that right, I'm sorry. And not with us today are the recipients of the Louis J. Batten Authors Award for a book aimed at a K-12 audience, and these awardees are M.K. Reed and Jonathan Hill. So congratulations to all of you. And then there's a... Congratulations, guys. So the Society has a special award for an individual or a group that has made an outstanding contribution that does not fall under any other award criteria. This year, the AMS is presenting a special award to David G. Lubar. If you guys want to pull up, yep. Congratulations. The Society also has a long tradition in recognizing corporations that have made contributions to the community. The award for outstanding services by a corporation is presented to Plume Labs by AccuWeather. Congratulations to you guys. So in this next group, the awardees have made outstanding contributions across a variety of activities. We ask that all of you come to the stage for your recognition, of course, the group photo at the end. The award for outstanding achievement in biometeorology is presented to Hape Schmid. The Francis W. Reichadelfer Award is presented to Thomas J. Lefebvre. The Helmut E. Landsberg Award is presented to Dave Niyogi. The Charles E. Anderson Award is presented to, whoa, we got a whole entourage, to Ada R. Munzon. Congratulations. Now that's how you bring a posse. That's how you bring a posse. The Henry T. Harrison Award for Outstanding Contributions by Consulting Meteorologists is presented to Jan Knoll. The award for Outstanding Contribution to the Advance of Applied Meteorology is presented to Marshall S. Moss. The Joanne Simpson Tropical Meteorology Research Award is presented to Christopher D. Thorncraft. The Kenneth C. Spengler Award recipient is Neil A. Jacobs. And also unable to attend the ceremony today is the recipient of the Shakaru Manabe Climate Research Award. The award is presented to Jonathan Gregory. Please give it up for all of them. Congratulations, guys. Okay, so these next two awards recognize teaching and mentorship, which of course are central to developing the future generations of atmospheric scientists. We ask both recipients to come on stage. The Robert H. and Joanne Simpson Mentorship Award is presented to Ralph A. Kahn. And then we have the Edward N. Lorenz Teaching Excellence Award, which is presented to Paul L. Servatka. And congratulations to both of you. You guys got to get your photo. Congratulations. Okay, the Society identifies two awards to recognize valuable service to our science and also to our society. So please come to the stage as I read your name. The Cleveland Abbey Award for Distinguished Service to the Atmospheric and Related Sciences is presented to Stanley G. Benjamin. And then we have the Charles Franklin Brooks Award for Outstanding Service to the Society, and that's presented to Richard D. Rosen. So then you want to get them two together. Got it. I think you got pictures. Yeah, I think we got it. Yeah. Congratulations to you guys. Okay, so now we're going to go into our medal winners. The following individual, and as they come up, by the way, they're going to be able to speak too. The following individual is being recognized for his contributions to science and technology. The Werner E. Somi Technology Award is presented to V. Chandrasekhar. And why don't we get your photos for, yeah, I was gonna get a photo with him. And then V, would you like to say a few words?
Thank you. This is a great moment. And Beth told me I had 12 minutes, and then I asked her, is it 3 minutes for questions? Then she said it's not 12 minutes, it's 1 to 2 minutes. Anyway, more seriously, this is a very humbling moment for me. I want to take a moment to acknowledge and thank my full support system, starting all the way from my teachers in school and colleges, university, our students, postdocs, staff, colleagues, inside and outside the university, especially collaboration with the industry and government, as well as family and friends. Without all their support, I could have hardly done anything. Offering my humble thanks. Thank you.
Okay, the next individual is being recognized for community leadership in addition to important research contributions. The Warring Washington Research and Leadership Medal is presented to Gordon A. McBain. We'll get a picture.
Well, thank you all. I'm very pleased and honored to be awarded the Warren Washington Research and Leadership Medal. It's a real special pleasure in view of being named after Warren Washington, who's been a longtime hero of mine. I thank the American Meteorological Society for this award and for being the organization that brings together the scientists across all the disciplines related to the issues of the weather, the climate, the oceans, and all the related issues, and how we can lead to real major benefits for all societies through this work. I think I attended my first AMS meeting about, I can't remember exactly, but 45 years ago, just to say, but that means I was only 2 years old then. So, and I really look forward to this coming week to get together with many of you again to see, and as we go through the 2023 Congress here. And throughout my career, I benefit very much by my association of members of the American Meteorological Society and colleagues such as Richard Anthes, Roger Pilvarti, Warren Washington, Sue Sharashian, and many others who got awards and other things today and in the last few years. And I thank you all very much, because I think it's this working together across our communities and issues that make a difference for the benefit of all societies, those of us in North America, and particularly and with help all around the world. So I think this is so important, and I thank you all for this and the difference we make together. Thank you.
Congratulations, Gordon. The following medalists are recognized for their highly significant research in atmospheric or hydraulic sciences and in the ocean's connection with the atmosphere. The Jewel G. Charney Medal is presented to Dale Duran.
I'm deeply honored to receive the Jewel Charney Medal. It's particularly meaningful to me because I'm one of a dwindling number of atmospheric scientists that actually took a class from Jewel Charney. And of course, it's also true that the accomplishments that supported my nomination are really due to my graduate students. So thank you very much.
Congratulations, Dale. The Svedrup Gold Medal is presented to Gerald A. Meal.
Well, the award of the Sverdrup Medal is a great honor, and I'm very grateful to the AMS, the nominators who spent the time to put my name forward, which is a considerable time investment, as we all know, and the many fantastic scientific collaborators I've had the pleasure and privilege of working with over the years. Science is often a team effort, and I've had the good fortune to work with a great team. Another essential ingredient to doing good science is having good mentors, and I wanted to mention two of them who played big roles in my scientific career. First, the late Harry Van Loon, whom a lot of you know, a longtime NCAR scientist, taught me that the careful analysis of observations is a key to increasing our understanding of the climate system. And second, Warren Washington, who's just been mentioned, another longtime NCAR scientist, taught me that analysis of climate models can provide insights into the results obtained from observations. And it's this powerful combination of analyses of observations and model simulations that can produce real insights into the workings of the climate system. And of course, none of this would be possible without the support of a very patient spouse. I want to thank Marla for tolerating those many evenings and weekends over the years when I was trying to get some science done. I couldn't have done it without her. Again, thank you for this honor.
The following medalists are awarded our highest research awards in oceanography, hydrologic science, and the atmospheric sciences. The Henry Stommel Researcher Medal is presented to Susan E. Wafels. Now, Susan regrets she cannot be with us today, but has provided us some remarks via video.
Good evening. I'm deeply honored to be awarded the Henry Stommel Research Medal today. It still amazes me that a daughter of post-World II immigrants to Australia, who was born in the outback on the muddy Darling River, would end up here with you. In my case, I benefited from a mother who defied her family expectations to elope to outback Australia, leaving behind relatively civilized Belgium, but who greatly valued education and filled the house with all kinds of inspiring books and materials to fuel our minds, and who never limited our dreams, as happened to many of my female school friends. While in pursuit of our careers, we all work hard and we're all driven by our innate curiosity, but it is those around us that keep us afloat, put the wind in our sails and see us move forward. Our family, school teachers, mentors, colleagues, students, and collaborators. In a time where few women were working in physical oceanography, and while inspired by the few amazing pioneer women at that time, I was largely mentored by wonderful men, both at the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution, that being Harry Bryden, John Toole, and Ray Schmidt, and the CSIRO in Australia, Gary Myers, Stu Godfrey, and John Church. To you, thanks so very much. I just wouldn't be here without your support and great generosity. As for most sciences, we now all work within a growing ecosystem of not just shared ideas, but shared tools and a vital data commons that we rely on to do our work. This system is maintained by all kinds of contributors, from vessel crews, satellite launch teams, engineers, technicians, data analysts, and software engineers. Our science Earth Science is now a truly global collective endeavor. So for all those who make this possible, many of whom never are recognized for their great enabling contributions, thank you. Lastly, thanks to the AMS and my nominators for this very great honor. And Mum, this one's for you. Thank you.
And congratulations to Susan. The Hydrologic Sciences Medal is presented to Paolo Dodorico.
It's a true honor for me to receive this, the Hydrological Science Medal. I'm grateful to the Selection Committee and the entire American Meteorological Society for this award. A special thanks goes to the group of colleagues who nominated me. With this medal, the AMS recognizes outstanding achievements in the field of hydrology. I'm humbled by this honor. It would have not been possible without the support of a group of colleagues, and starting also from my mentors. I want to recognize my advisor, Andrea Rinaldo, my postdoctoral advisor, Ignacio Rodriguez Iturbe, and a group of students who really stimulate the passion for learning, understanding, discovery. Thank you again to the American Meteorological Society and to all of you for your support. Thank you.
Okay, we have one final medal. The Carl Gustav Rosby Research Medal is presented to Bruce A. Albrecht.
Well, I must say I'm very humbled and honored to receive this award. But this honor wouldn't have been possible without the contributions of the many scientists and students and technical staff that I had an opportunity to work with during my career. As a graduate student at Colorado State University, my work with Alan Betts and Wayne Schubert instilled the vision that I had for many of my research projects on marine boundary layer clouds, so I'm very grateful for that. Also as a graduate student, I was in Dakar, Senegal for 4.5 months, flying around over the Atlantic in research flights as part of GATE. And during that time, I was able to meet with some of the greats in the field, including Joanne Simpson, Dick Reed, and Ed Zipser. And that event had a major impact on my development of my career from that point on. In more recent time, I've been fortunate to work with several scientists on some major research projects. I am particularly grateful for the opportunity to collaborate with Chris Farrell, Chris Bretherton, and Rob Wood. And, but most of all, I need to give credit to my graduate students for their assistance in my career. I have a very talented graduate students, and I was privileged to be able to mentor and work with them. I can't name them all, but this honor goes with them too. This award goes to them too. So some of them are actually here, so I shout out to you for all your great help over the years. And finally, I need to thank my loving wife, Nancy, for her patience and her support during our many years together. And thank you to the AMS.
These outstanding individuals were recognized with these awards because members actually took the time and effort to nominate them. I urge all of you in this room to nominate your worthy colleagues for future awards. So we're going to close the awards portion of this session with the highest honor bestowed by the AMS. Election to the category of honorary member is restricted by our Constitution to persons of acknowledged preeminence in the atmospheric or related oceanic or hydrologic sciences, or their application, or through furtherance of their advance of those sciences in some other way. Now, our procedures insist the addition of the new name to the roster of honorary members is as much of an honor for the society as for the individual. So this year, please join me in recognizing 3 new honorary members. Sue Barrell, unfortunately, is not able to join us, but did provide a video saying thanks.
Thank you. I am genuinely honoured to be recognised as an honorary member of the AMS, especially at the same time as Kathy Sullivan and Roger Wakamoto, both of whom I admire greatly, and I extend my congratulations to them both. I'm so sorry that I can't be there with you all in Denver to celebrate. The American Meteorological Society plays an incredible role in celebrating and mobilising engagement in the profession of meteorology across the United States and across the world. Through my career at the Australian Bureau of Meteorology and in my various roles at the World Meteorological Organization, I've experienced the convening power of the AMS, how it brings all of the contributing sectors and communities together, and the great example it provides to aspiring younger meteorologists just setting out in the profession. I've enjoyed the opportunities that my membership of the AMS has provided to me over the years. Thank you to President Rich Clark and your executive team for your leadership of the AMS. You do an incredible job. And I'd also like to take this opportunity to acknowledge and thank my mentor of many years, Dr. John Zillman, who introduced me to the AMS many years ago and who set and continues to set such a great example of public service in meteorology. Thank you, everyone, and enjoy your wonderful annual meeting.
And congratulations to Sue. Our next honorary member is Catherine D. Sullivan.
Well, this is quite an opportunity to stand up here before all of you. You know, in my view, honors bestowed by one's peers are really great treasures, and I am deeply grateful to join the esteemed ranks of honorary members of the American Meteorological Society. I extend many, many thanks to all who supported my nomination, and I have to say I'm deeply grateful, special gratitude, to all my NOAA colleagues, who, truth be told, did all the work that undergirds this award. You know, providing actionable environmental intelligence to protect lives and livelihoods, communities and businesses across the globe, that's a vital mission. AMS members pursue this vital mission each and every day with professionalism, excellence, and dedication. I salute you. I thank you for your dedication to this mission, and I thank you for this great honor, which I accept with pride.
Congratulations, Catherine. And our final honorary member is Roger M. Walkimoto.
Don't read anything to be my being last. It's the curse of my last name ending in W, so. So I'm very honored to accept this recognition from the AMS. I do recall my first introduction to the society as an undergraduate, and quite frankly, I had little appreciation that the organization would have such a deep and profound impact on my professional life. It's also amazing to be acknowledged for my contributions that I never considered work. I've always considered it fun and rewarding. I want to thank the wonderful organizations that I've worked for, NCAR, NSF, and especially UCLA, where I've spent the bulk of my career. I was truly humbled when I realized that the Society has only honored longtime UCLA faculty members Jakob Bjerknes and Akio Arakawa as honorary members to date. I truly stand on their shoulders and hope that I have accomplished even a fraction of what those two individuals collectively contributed to our field. I want to take this opportunity to acknowledge my parents who passed away, who were admittedly slightly disappointed that I chose atmospheric sciences, but they always strongly supported me throughout my life. I want to recognize all of my former students and collaborators who worked with me over the years. My advisor, Ted Fujita, who was quite literally a force of nature. He taught me and gave me all the tools that allowed me to succeed during my career, for which I am eternally grateful. Finally, and most importantly, I want to thank my wife, Gina. My life changed when we met as graduate students at the University of Chicago, and I simply would not be standing in front of you today without her unwavering love and support, mixed in with the occasional statement that I was working too hard. Thank you again for this honor.
Congratulations, Roger, and congratulations to all the award winners. I'm going to turn it back over to you, big man. It's your turn.
Let's thank Danielle Breezy for what a wonderful job emceeing. And my personal congratulations and my congratulations on behalf of the Society to all the award winners and the fellows. It's wonderful to be able to see such a vibrant society and see your contributions. Before I ask President, soon-to-be President, imminently, Brad Coleman to the stage, I just want to end this with an appreciation to my wife, Dr. Seppi Yalda. She's my friend, she's my confidant, and she's my love. And I appreciate her sitting right here in front, sort of keeping an eye on me. So at this time, I would like to ask Brad Coleman to come to the stage. And this is the time where we sort of pass the torch. Although I have to tell you that we both, well, we don't have our our badges on now, but we both will walk around with badges that say president. And I think it's like wave particle duality that, like it's whatever you want to be on the occasion. It depends upon how you look at us at one time. But anyway, so Brad, it's all yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Rich. Over this past year, I learned a great deal from Rich. I've also learned a lot about Rich. First off, Rich is a storyteller. And you can't spend much time with Rich without getting good stories. Life lesson stories. I learned about his early interest in telescopes and astronomy, his early career in the textile industry, textile chemistry, lots of stories there. logging, and also his living off the grid experiences. First person I've talked to who actually bought a home that, if I understood correctly, had a working furnace, oil furnace, but he took it out so he could live on burned wood. It also became apparent to me that Rich was using these life lessons to guide himself through this past year with great skill. So that was great for me to see. Second, Rich is passionate. And this passion doesn't come through any more than when he's talking about teaching and his students. And he just glows when he shares those stories. Have to tell a quick story from yesterday. The student luncheon, where you go in and the students are all gathering and they try to split you up so everyone gets to do a little networking. And I sat down at a table and introductions were made. And 3 of the 8 students around the table happened to be from Millersville. I shouldn't be surprised because over the years, since the late 80s, Rich and Millersville have brought nearly 1,000 students to the student conference, 32 students alone this year. But I also quickly learned that the passion was mutual between the students and Rich and the students. They went on about how smart Rich was, about how accomplished he was. And it was fascinating. If they had gone on to talk about his athletic prowess, it might have been a little annoying, but they didn't. But it was fun and it was great, and it just shows the impact that Rich has made through his career in teaching. We too, at the AMS, are very fortunate that Rich is passionate. And this passion, you saw it today as he kicks off his meeting in data and the presidential forum. He showed it throughout this year. And again, I learned so much in following him and for trying to figure out, okay, I have to do all this next. Okay. And Rich was great in that way. I also asked Stella, what would you say about Rich? She said, well, Rich is patient, agile, and wise. And I couldn't agree more. And Rich has been a remarkable president with the right skills and patience to guide us through this past year, and we owe him a great deal of thanks. So Rich, if you could come up on the stage one more time. I have the honor to present this small token from the Society and our members in recognition of your service.
I like shiny things. Except your nose.
She'll tell you.
Shiny things. Thank you all so much. I'm so humbled. I can't hardly even speak.
Let's give him a final round. Thank you for staying around just a few more minutes. And that is a little bit about this coming year. And it goes back to this past year and Rich. And Rich was very gracious and allowed, as the council looked at this initiative, to try to take on different actions and changes in how they executed the activities to try to make it more productive, more transparent to the membership, but also more valuable to the council experiences. And out of that, was one of these strategic plans, looking ahead, strategic priorities, excuse me. And the 2 that were chosen, and we started this past September, we had a retreat, and DEI, and then climate science and services are the 2 that we're working on. And climate science and services, we had a great discussion. And in September, and then we formed a task team to look at this and to see what we could do as a society to bring more presence of the AMS into this broader enterprise community conversation and work within climate sciences and services, trying to leverage what we do as a society so well, our core strengths, convening meetings, certification, bringing conversations together in a way that we only can do. And it's been fun so far. We had our first real kickoff meeting in December, lots of conversations. We have a lot of ideas on the table, and we're going to build from those ideas. We have a facilitator. We've been looking at what is our vision? What do we want to do over this next year or into the second year as far as climate sciences and services? And we're now going to move ahead and get that mission, that vision statement of what we want to do, and come and probably present to the council, hopefully at the council meeting in late April, a strategic plan. And we want to share it with all of you, but that will be what the council will be working on. And for me, it's a real blessing because I don't know if we have my slide up yet. Okay, here it is. For me, and as I looked at potential themes for my meeting, which is in Baltimore, starting on January 27th in 2024, I chose living in a changing environment. And it really is the first meeting that society has had where climate change, climate variability has been the focus, the center point of that conference. And we want to focus all the way from the foundational science to data and observations and Earth system modeling, and particularly as we talk about impacts, singular events, and how do you deliver climate services in a way that we can mitigate these effects and adapt and work on these different issues. So I hope to see all of you in Baltimore. Better yet, if you want to get involved, we're starting the planning. If you have some ideas, you want to get involved either with council activities, you can follow those by documents that are posted online or reaching out to any of the leadership team or the council, and also as far as getting ready for the membership, the meeting in Baltimore in 2024. So that's what I wanted to say about this year. And then, if I have my script right, at this point I'm supposed to say, at this time, I understand there is a motion from the floor.
Mr. President, hopefully this won't take 15 ballots. I move that the acts of the councilors and officers of the society during the year ended 31 December 2022, done in the proper conduct of the business of the society, be hereby adopted, approved, and confirmed.
Thank you. Thank you. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Good. Excellent. Okay. The meeting is adjourned. I encourage everyone to go to Hall A, where there's a reception and student poster viewing. Thank you. Have a great week.
I really appreciate that.